Chapter 33. Reactions and Care. All Might's POV. After a long day of training my disciple and studying to become a better teacher, I usually relax the rest of the time. Today I gave young Midoriya a break. He still needs one from time to time. I also managed to get some free time since I'd studied most of what Nisa gave me. Right now, I have the TV on in the background while I look for news for my student. His progress is steady, and I need to gradually increase the intensity of his training. To do that, I need more research. I suddenly heard from my TV. Breaking news. Explosions were heard at a complex near Tokyo. One person was thrown out of the gate, and the police surrounded the area. Hearing all that made me turn my head toward the TV. We'll switch to our reporter, who has an aerial view from our helicopter. I could see the large complex and the police surrounding it. I hope this isn't too bad. I won't be able to get there anytime soon. Then I saw someone I recognized. It was young Allan. He's always up to something, isn't he? It had become a sensitive subject for me. I don't really understand it, but I managed to get over my guilt after a while. But I realized he wasn't fighting seriously when he was captured. Back then, I was getting tired and wasting my time. I seemed to notice the smoke coming from me. He stopped long enough for Aizawa to use his ability on him. It still baffles me to this day. Why would he do something like that? I know he wanted to become a hero. I'm starting to think he was just testing himself. Seeing him surrounded by villains didn't worry me at all. Maybe there were too many, but I'm sure he'll manage. It's more dangerous now that he has a child in his arms. After observing young Allan in his daily life, I realized that strength isn't even something he's concerned about. He trains a lot, but he doesn't use much of his strength for anything other than that. He prefers to spend his free time after training sleeping or eating. He's definitely not going to be a role model. At least I hope he doesn't. His attitude also greatly lessened my anxiety. He was always indifferent, devoid of any trauma or mental scars from his experiences. His attitude could be quite refreshing. His next move was too much for me. The size of that orb of light was only twice the size of the school. If he had used that in our fight, he would have won instantly, eliminating both the police and all the heroes present. That kind of power was something I wasn't capable of even at my peak. The speed and range of the attack are monstrous, even to my eyes. However, it was reassuring to know that that power was on our side. Now I know my era is coming to an end. At least I don't have to rush my students' training. The next generation seems much more promising than the last. People are in good hands. POV narration. While Tashinori felt content and at ease from the Bakugo house, a lot of swearing and shouting could be heard. Meanwhile, a little later, Izuku was also clenching his fist, watching a replay of the incident on his phone. Both he and Bakugo were training very hard to catch up to Allan. But the gap was only getting wider and more obvious. It made them both even more determined than before. Izuku called All Might to train on his day off, and Bakugo grabbed his things and headed to a peculiar gym. It was a bit pricey, but it was the best place for aspiring heroes to train before trying to get into a hero academy. The same scene was playing out elsewhere. When Mirio saw he could barely contain his excitement, he rushed onto the field and trained with renewed vigor. Tamaki wasn't quite as excited, but he was solemn. He didn't want his friends to get ahead of him. Nijire was almost as excited, maybe even more so. She had a wide grin on her face when she saw her friends training and decided to join them immediately. The three of them started to forget what they needed to study for the exams, too caught up in their enthusiasm. However, they would regret it later. The incident had already gone viral, making Yellow Flash one of the most searched names for the next few weeks. It was now one of the most viewed videos on HEROTube. POVMC. After flying for a while, I reached the walls of UA. Eri had already opened her eyes, staring at them in amazement. "Is this your home?" she asked in a sweet, excited voice. Her first time seeing UA was a lovely sight. "Well, I live here, but it's also where I work." She seemed just as happy, probably without really understanding. "I'll take you to a really good doctor. She can heal you very well." The smile on my face was coming naturally at this point. Her smile was just as wide, if not wider. I hope Recovery Girl doesn't mind the extra work. Although, knowing her, she might completely ignore me and stay with Eri. Regardless, I arrived at the infirmary and carried Eri to the bed. And just as I expected, Recovery Girl didn't even treat me like I was nothing. I didn't exist in her eyes at all. She was enthralled by how cute Eri was and how anyone could hurt something so adorable. Recovery Girl's harmless appearance made her the perfect person to look after Eri. Looking at them, I simply said, "Eri, I'm going out for a bit. Don't worry, I'll be nearby." I put on a reassuring smile as I glanced at Eri. I still needed to talk to Nizu and probably get a hefty fine from him for all the violent takedown of a villain group. I also needed to write a report for the police station. With the spectacle I just put on, I doubt I'll get much more than a fine as punishment. The takedown itself would pay me more than the fine. Nodding, Eri said, "Okay, I'll wait here." Meanwhile, the remedial girl glared at me and said, "What? You were still here, Shual?" As I waved goodbye. She really hated that after I came to UA, her workload increased. She liked to take it out on me, but I wasn't going to ignore her blow. Old dash. I didn't even get to finish that before I received the cane. Eri just laughed at the scene. With a wry smile, I left the room. I wonder how my life choices led me to this place. Chapter 34. Nizu and Adoption. As I arrived at Nizu's office, I could already sense him inside, combing his hair as usual. I think he spends more time on that than on schoolwork. With his brain, most of the paperwork gets done instantly anyway. Knocking on the door, I put on the best smile I could muster, practiced in my last life as a corporate rat. I wasn't always a freelancer. After all, I once tried to climb the corporate ladder and live the capitalist dream. Finally, my skills will be put to good use. After hearing him tell me to come in, he opened the door and said, "Good morning, sir. It's a beautiful day today." He just stared at me, an amused look on his face. I hope you don't find my situation funny. His sense of humor can be a bit sadistic. "Oh, young Allan, please have a seat. I think we have a few things to discuss," he said with a smug grin as he gestured to a nearby sofa. The discussion was rather unpleasant. Thankfully, it didn't take long. Basically, he made it clear that my situation is still a special case and that I should pay a little more attention to my actions. He also seemed pleased with my show of force. It would make the government much more reluctant to punish me if the public considered me one of their most powerful protectors. Then we got to the part one was really interested in. What would happen to Eri? About the girl you brought here. We don't know much about her situation. It would be great if you could clarify a few things for me. Basically, she has a very powerful quirk that she can't really control, and she was being exploited because of it. She has nowhere else to go, I said, a slight frown creeping across my face. I think the best thing we can do is keep her here, where she can learn to control her power and get a proper education. I instantly transformed that frown into a confident smile. I understand where you're coming from, Allan, but a child as young as her still needs parental love. Wouldn't the best option be to find a family willing to adopt her? Nizu's concern was well-founded. He was speaking with an orphan now, one who had turned to a very dangerous profession from a young age. I want to take care of her. I think she wouldn't mind either. But legally, Nizu interrupted me, an amused smile on his face. You really don't need to worry about the legality. There are plenty of loopholes we can exploit in that area. I guess he always does things like this. He continued with the same energy. I think the best course of action is to ask her opinion. Even though she's young, she should still have something to say in all of this. Obviously, we were going to ask her. But regardless of whether she ends up with me or a loving family, it's best that she studies here. At the end of the day, I think it's better to give her some control. After being locked up against her will, having control over her own destiny can be somewhat therapeutic. Now, when it comes to your adoption options, you can't really adopt her in your own name. I think you already know that. Nizu really didn't like to sugarcoat things. I was about to say something, but he interrupted my thoughts. However, if you could get someone you trust to adopt her, you could still raise her. Great. Human connections, my weakness. I'll think of someone director. I think Rumi could help me with this case, since she has a clean record and all. I just hope it's not too much. After that, I said my goodbyes, leaving Nizu to make some phone calls. The only thing left to do was talk to Eri, but not before using my increased speed to pounce on every clothing store in the area. I wasn't going to let her wear that rag any longer than necessary. Surprisingly, Many people recognized me, and some stores even gave me discounts. I was quickly buying a whole wardrobe for my little Aerie. Now, I wasn't planning on spending all my savings here, but I really can't help it. I now have more bags in my hands than should be humanly possible. I even used my light to create a cart to transport all the shoe boxes and bags full of clothes. Most people took pictures of me. I think my shopping spree in the children's clothing aisle made people look at me strangely. But their stares don't bother me, because my mission is sacred. Getting back to UA with all that luggage wasn't so fast. I could speed up and cover more distance and all that, but I needed some time to think. What if Rumi didn't want to help me? Who would I turn to then? Would Tashinori agree? Those kinds of worries were really annoying. But no matter what happened, Eri had to stay by my side. I'd already sworn to protect her, and nothing was going to stop me. Now I could only hope that I wouldn't take too long with her clothes. I made my way to the infirmary and left the clothes at the door. I could hear her laughing. As soon as I entered the room, I saw the big three there playing with Eri. They were really good at calming down the people around them. Well, everyone except Recovery Girl, who was glaring at them with pure hatred. I think I can piece together what happened here. They overdid it with their training and injured themselves, came here and interrupted Recovery Girl's time with Eri, giving her even more work. If they weren't already injured, they would have gotten injured coming here. Eri was the first to notice me. She broke into a huge smile and ran over to hug me. Allan. She jumped up, and I caught her too, pulling her close to my chest once more. Mirio just looked on with a smile and said, Allan, that raid was awesome. Nijire also seemed excited to see me. We should train together more. Recovery Girl quickly reacted, saying, If you do, don't you dare come to me for fixes. She glared at us, making Tamaki almost whimper. I'm glad you guys are getting along with Eri. We continued talking for a while, but unfortunately, she didn't stay long. Eager to get back to their training, much to the chagrin of our young resident nurse. Now, it was time for my conversation with Eri. Chapter 35. Eri's Decision. After the three aspiring heroes left, it was just me, Recovery Girl, and Eri in the infirmary. Eri hadn't really left my arms since she arrived. I guess I can't complain. She's pretty light anyway. Looking at Eri, I started talking to get her attention. There are a few things we need to do now. She looked at me expectantly and somewhat curiously. We need to ask you about your decision, whether you want me to continue taking care of you or if you want to be adopted by a loving family. I really didn't want to force her to choose me. Even if she chose adoption, I would help and protect her. I would also make sure to help her master her quirk. Aizawa would probably be her teacher. More work for him. She seemed a little surprised by this. Her big eyes widened slightly. I want to stay with Big Brother. I guess hearing her call me that isn't so bad, even if it does hurt my fragile heart a little. Thanks, Eri. Without realizing it, a huge smile spread across my face. Though I seemed happy to have had the option, I still had quite a few things to do besides writing that damn report for the police station. I also need to take Eri there once she's recovered. She just needs a victim's testimony. It shouldn't take long. She just needs to say a few things, and someone will write them down. I just hope they don't have to make her relive those things. But for now, that solves the adoption problem. Now, I just need to somehow convince Rumi to become a mother to me. I should also ask her out for something other than training and patrolling. It would be sad if all we did was train, since it's pretty clear we both like each other. Now that I think about it, adopting a child with Rumi might be skipping some stages in our relationship. Well, I'm sure there won't be any problems here. I'll talk to her tomorrow. Now I need to write that report and get Eri dressed in something nice. Eri, I bought you some clothes. Her face lit up with excitement. I guess she didn't get much choice in her wardrobe while she was under Shai Hasaikai's care. Do you want to come and pick out some you like? She nodded quickly. I walked with her hand to the door and carried all the bags into the infirmary. The Recovery Girl just looked at us with a small smile. I suppose it was mainly directed at Eri, but she wasn't going to make a fuss about it as long as I cleaned up after her. Leaving everything for Eri, I said, You can look and choose whatever you want from here. I just bought them on my way here, I said with a smile as I knelt on one knee. Eri looked at me and thanked me again. This time her big eyes held a few tears. I instantly started to panic internally. What do you do when your child cries for the first time? I looked at Recovery Girl. She just nodded, probably thinking I was going to do something. My mind was racing, and the only thing I could think of was to pick her up and create a small chain of light. I made it dance around us, forming shapes and figures as it twitched and flew around her. She was still sobbing, but the light managed to distract her a little. Thankfully, her tears weren't from sadness. She had a small smile on her face. She simply hugged me tightly as she could. With our size difference, it was difficult for her to hold me properly. I could hear her whisper a soft, "Thank you," and cry. It transformed the panic in my heart into happiness, and a smile formed on my face. I stayed like that for a few minutes. The light played around us for a while before entering my sleeve and disappearing. I was patting her back as she cried, slowly pulling away from me. I just said, "You're welcome." With that, she started smiling brightly, looking at the clothes around her and rummaging through some of the bags for things she might like. Recovery Girl will help her try them on when she decides which one she likes best. I'll let her do that on her own. She had quite a few options, so I suppose it should take some time. I left the room after a while. I still need to go start writing that report. Getting to my room was easy. I always leave my window open so I don't have to climb stairs. It helps a lot. I could just look at my reflection in my bed and fall asleep. But this time, I went to my desk to start writing. Well, I showered and changed first. I'm trying to postpone talking to Rumi about the adoption as much as possible. Writing this report is one way to do that. I could also go and inform Nizu of Aries' choice, although Recovery Girl most likely already told him. When I finished writing the report, the sun was already starting to set. I just emailed it to them. I really didn't feel like flying over to deliver it. I needed to see Aries one last time before informing Nizu about her choice. I should sleep in the infirmary tonight, but I really don't want her to be lonely, so I guess I'll find something. When I entered the room, I could still see the bags near her bed. She was wearing a pair of pajamas I'd bought for her. She was already asleep. It had been a tiring day for her. It had been a tiring day for me, too, not physically, of course. Well, Nizu can wait. I'll go to a random bed in the infirmary and sleep off my worries. Meanwhile, the police were announcing to the press the status of the raid and how it was handled. Chapter 36. Rumi and Hero Ranking. When I woke up, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the desire to stay in bed for another day or two, mainly because I needed to talk to Rumi about Aries' situation today. As I got up, I could see that Aries was still asleep. I quietly floated my way to the door, careful not to wake her. Opening the door silently was difficult, but all I had to do was open it and let a small ray of light through. I managed to do it without making a single sound. Walking down the hall, I could see that the sun hadn't risen yet. I arrived very early today. I usually go to bed very late, so that might explain why. The first thing I did was go to my room and check the web. I wanted to see how famous I'd become after my last stunt. Checking my social media, I could see that I'd gained followers. I even had a fan-made subreddit now. My recent surge in popularity propelled me to number 8. I was also rapidly gaining popularity, so I can expect my ranking to climb even higher in the coming weeks. I already pushed Rumi back up to 10 right after she managed to beat Ryukyu, reaching number 9. Thanks. She didn't seem to care much about the billboard, even though she recently became the highest-ranking heroine in Japan. While browsing the web, I stumbled across an article that was really bad-mouthing me. It claimed that someone as young as me shouldn't get in the way of the police. It was obviously trying to generate negative attention, and it worked perfectly. The number of negative comments was staggering, and my fan base had grown substantially. They were more than ready to defend me. I wasn't going to comment on it. I was just going to give the article more attention. Ignoring things is my forte, after all. After spending some time browsing the web, I still found a few people thinking I'd been too brutal with the villains during the raid. Some were worried I might become as violent as Endeavor. I wasn't really going to address these issues, mainly because I didn't have my own online presence. I should create a HeroTube account or something. I certainly don't plan on hiring a marketing team. I don't need one. By the time I finished browsing online, the sun was already up. I got up and dressed in something a bit more elegant than my tracksuit. Basically, a pair of jeans and a white shirt. I wanted to at least look presentable for her. I went to Rumi's as quickly as possible. She should already be up, probably making breakfast or something. I still don't know exactly how to tell her this, but I'll find something. I'm a great public speaker under pressure. Just kidding. When I got to her door, I cleared my throat and knocked. I could feel her checking who it was, sighing and opening the door. Rumi, it's so good to see you, I said with a smile. Yeah, really great. What's the problem? You're not exactly dressed for training or patrol. Great. She already saw right through me. For some reason, she had an expectant look on her face. Well, I need your help with something. As soon as I said that, I could hear the door crack, the wood being crushed by her fingers. Her face remained unchanged. Gulping, I said, I actually wanted to ask you out on a date first, but then this problem came up. Her grip on the door loosened as she began to smile slightly. And what could that be? She asked, a little annoyed but still pleased by my desire to go on a date with her. My next question was going to be a deal breaker. I need to be careful with that. But feeling her gaze on me made me a little anxious. Maybe it's because I don't have much experience with women. Why you'll adopt a child with me? That backfired. I could see her face turn red and look shocked, thankfully giving me a little time to explain before I hit the floor. After a few minutes of my clumsy explanation of Aries' life story and current situation, she said, And you want me to adopt her? She looked at me like I was an idiot. Well, I thought we could take care of her together. I know this is a lot. Our relationship hasn't even really started yet. I could barely meet her eyes at that moment. After a brief pause, with her looking at me with a confused expression, she said, Okay, but this date had better be good. The confusion on her face was replaced by a smile. Of course, I'll have Nisa take care of most of the paperwork. All you have to do is sign it, I said, both relieved and happy. The date is something I'll have to worry about eventually, but I don't want it on my mind right now. Rumi, however, seemed very pleased with herself, almost as if she'd won a battle. I said I'd wait for her to make a decision. I guess this situation spurred her on a bit. After hugging Rumi goodbye, an action that made her face turn a noticeable shade of red, I quickly went to Nizu to inform him of this development. I think he's already done most of the paperwork anyway. I need to check with Majima about a women's weighted training suit. I hope he'll have it ready by the end of the year. But since Rumi and I are becoming something, I should also get her something nice, something unrelated to training. Well, I hope Rumi likes lasagna, because I'm going to beg Lunch Rush to cook for us no matter what. Nizu was as busy as ever, grooming his fur even shinier and softer, and chatting with Tashinori about a few things. When I walked in and told him about my choice, he didn't even seem surprised. Tashinori just mumbled something about young love, and one look from me quickly silenced him. My interactions with Rumi were no secret to anyone at UA, and Aizawa was quite pleased that I was spending less time here too. Regardless, he handed me the paperwork that was already done in Rumi's name. He told me to take it to him for her to sign. He really doesn't waste any time. With that quick process, the adoption was complete. And that's it. I'll bring you the next chapter soon. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it.